Hey folks, we are doing a new thing, so not so much live anymore with our Q&As, but make sure you ask some questions down in the comments, and Project Purple or us will fill them out later. But we are here with...
Live? You said we weren't doing live.
We're not doing live.
But now
this
we're
is
live.
recorded. Well, we're live right now, but we're with
right
Dino.
here.
But we're with Dino.
And that's live.
And we are here at Project Purple headquarters in Seymour, Connecticut. And so we're going to have some great conversations today. We're doing kind of a cool thing. There's also going to be a podcast of the entire conversation that we have. That's actually Project Purple interviewing us rather than us interviewing Project Purple and vice versa. That's going to be available on Monday. So make sure you check that out at the Project Purple website.
Podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Share. And also look for it on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It'll be blasted. Yeah,
it'll be blasted. So you'll catch a good 10-15 minutes of us asking them questions, but then you can catch the whole podcast in its entirety on Monday.
Well, I'm sure it'll be edited.
Well, we will edit out all of the dirty words that Dawn says.
I might swear. It happens.
It happens.
It does happen. But yeah, again, down below in the comments, ask questions that you might have for Project Purple, and Project Purple's social media folks will answer those questions, or will answer those questions, and if we don't know the answer, we'll make it up.
Always.
Or we will ask Project Purple and get an answer, one or the other. So, Dino, thanks so much for doing this with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming. And you said headquarters. I like to call this the mothership.
Oh,
mothership.
Okay. So this is the mothership because it kind of does look a little bit like a ship when you're in here somewhat, because there's not a lot of windows. You guys haven't noticed. There's only one window in the whole office for us.
Didn't notice that, but now that you mention it, wow.
So you guys are like all mushrooms. They keep you in the dark and feed you crap.
Keep you, and the rays from the LED lighting works great. Our succulent plant that's there in the corner behind producer Sam is growing like weeds. We don't know why. It has something to do with the UV rays.
It feeds off that radiation.
Yeah, it feeds off of it. Yeah. So Sam will probably have some weird growths coming soon.
If the apocalypse happens, you're totally safe in here.
Because we have a big safe.
Yeah.
Literally.
You do literally have a big safe. Yeah.
They're in an old bank. We're in an old bank, and so there's actually a vault. It's a big purple vault because
we painted it purple. It was brown. It was actually like mustard when we moved in. And I said one of the first things we got to do is we got to paint that thing purple.
Right, absolutely.
So we painted it purple, but I've actually been locked into that safe. So it actually, and I don't know if you knew this, most good safes, for those watching at home, if you get locked in, there is the ability to come out. It's kind of like being locked in the trunk of the car.
There's a handle, there's a wire, a switch.
Right? So if you are locked from inside, so if the apocalypse were to come, run to a safe that, well, hopefully you know that it opens once you get locked in.
Yeah, don't run into a strange safe.
Right.
Know the safes you're going into, and then lock yourself in, and then once all the zombies go by, then you can let yourself out.
So what I want to know is, did Liz lock you into the safe?
No, the person who locked me in the safe will not be mentioned. But yeah, so that did happen though. Let's just put it that way.
Did you know you were going to be able to get out once before you got locked in?
I'm going to plead the fifth on that.
Okay.
Was there a little bit of freaking out when that happened? Yes. Was there oxygen in there? Yes. I realized that there's a vent in there, so I could potentially crawl through the vent if I needed to get out.
I'm seeing the wheels. Like, okay, how do I get out?
He's going die hard on this.
I was going die hard on it. Like if I got locked in there. So I did know that before I went in. So I didn't freak out too much, and I was pretty confident that the staff would be able to unlock the code. When we did move into the space, there actually, it was so bad, there was a piece of paper just with the numbers scribbled on it. So that was the faith that I had that they would have the combination to the safe. So
excellent. God, maybe we don't need a vault.
Maybe we don't need a vault.
I would totally lock you in. I would.
Just make sure the code is safe somewhere. So now we've taken the code off the door. It was on there with like 30-year-old Scotch tape that was just like hanging off. And so we now have it in a safe place, and it's on like our Google Drive and our Dropbox, as everyone knows what the passcode is. God forbid someone else gets locked in there.
Sam has it tattooed on the inside of his wrist. Yeah, just in case. Where am I looking at? That's my cheat sheet right there.
It has been locked before on purpose by my younger son. He thought it would be kind of a joke that he locked the safe, and then we did have a freak out because it was the morning of our food truck event, and so we were trying to get our stuff out of there. So my son, who's a big Potterhead fan and has followed you guys, and is actually, I think he did do, I think this is his medal from the Half-Blood Prince that I took from him, but he has signed up for this one. And so if he's watching, which he could be at some point, he got in trouble that day for locking the safe, and we had a freak out moment because no one could open the safe at that point in time. So that was fun.
That sounds brilliant. That sounds
so
exactly like something my kid would do too.
They add a lot of stress to your life, I guess.
Okay. But they look cool.
They look cool.
They really do.
But they do look cool, and it's a big purple safe.
I need a safe and a bullhorn.
The bullhorn, we can make that happen. I think
this is not. She does not need a bullhorn.
really
we have 3 here, so Dawn got excited when she saw the bullhorn. We might have to pull that out for our podcast.
Excellent.
That might be cool.
All right. So anyway, so we actually need to ask some questions of you, because as people are watching and listening, because they're slacking off at work, so they don't have the video on, but they have the audio on through their headphones, because I know how people slack off at work. Well done, you. But no, so Project Purple, this is the second time around as a charity partner with Random Tuesday, with previously Hogwarts Running Club, now Potterhead Running Club. And so you already showed off the medal. Show it off again. The Half-Blood Prince Half Marathon. The story behind this one is actually really quite wonderful, because we lost Alan January of 2016. Alan Rickman, our Half-Blood Prince, and we lost him on a Thursday morning. It was Thursday morning for us, Thursday afternoon in the UK, and we were literally 2 days from launching the first event of 2016, which was the Molly Weasley Ugly Jumper Run. And because of Alan's death, and we did a T-shirt campaign, no medal T-shirt only, for DebateMate. And which was one of Alan's favorite charities. His wife Rima is heavily involved in that organization. They're awesome. Love it, mate. Dawn's going.
See you soon.
See you soon. Dawn's going for a big event.
10-year anniversary, and it's the final championship of the Alan Rickman Cup
that we funded.
Yes.
So cool.
And so it's a debate championship in his honor.
And so I'm gonna, I'll take the hit and go to London.
Thank goodness.
Take that.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for United Points. But so after that T-shirt did very well. We raised $35,000 for DebateMate. We were looking for a way we could truly honor Alan in something that wasn't put together in less than 7 hours. Yeah. Because he died Thursday morning, and by Thursday afternoon the T-shirt was available. We had a charity partner for it, and we were off and running. We were looking for. Yeah, it was nuts. We were looking for a better way to honor him, and we had been planning since 2014 to do a Half-Blood Prince half marathon. And I was like, well, this is the year we're going to do it, and we're going to do it for Alan. Now, to find a charity partner that fits Professor Snape, Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber, like you. Second Die Hard reference so far. That's awesome. And trying to find a way, and I mean, I was scouring the nominations from our members. And then I got an email, a random email from a new member who had recently discovered us, who worked for Project Purple, and got that email. And she's like, "Yeah, we'd love to get together and maybe do something that do an event." And I'm like, "Well, what do you know? I have an event coming up that I need a project." It was like the perfect email at the perfect time. Yeah. It was what I call RTI serendipity, when the perfect thing happens at the perfect time, and it happens to us.
That happens a lot. Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird, but it's wonderful, and proof that there is magic in the world. But so that's how we started in 2016 with Project Purple. First time meeting you guys, and that right there is still the record holder for the most registrations for any event.
Yeah.
And the largest donation we've ever given to a single entity. You did get pushed out, if you want to talk about large donation, you did get pushed out last year by ASOC, the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition, but that was supporting 3 different scientists, so doesn't really count.
Yeah, we won't count.
We won't count that. 3 different missions. Yeah, but still to this day, the largest donation we've ever given to a single mission for the most registrations we've ever had for a single event is still the Half-Blood Prince. Still the record holder, now almost 3 years later. So when
And I
we're
still like that medal, which is weird because usually, like after a couple of years, I'm like, oh my god, I hate that thing.
I'm sick of it,
I still
yeah.
like it.
Well, I just pulled this off my metal rack, so it's in my office on my my metal rack. So I think it's pretty cool.
I
It's
like
a
it.
constant reminder of our partnership and what we were able to accomplish. And you talk about the dollars and cents of it all. It's just fascinating. I think when Brian, you reached out about the second event, we talked about what's happening.
right, and that's exactly where I was going, because that medal, again, while it's a record holder, whatnot, the reality is that event, the Half-Blood Prince Half Marathon, is still saving lives today. So I'd really love you to talk about the clinical trial that is going on at the University of Nebraska Medical Center on Dodge Street in Omaha. Yes, I know this because
We've been there.
Bringing it back, like going way back.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Were you born at the medical center?
No, I was born at Methodist Hospital,
okay,
so
okay.
I wasn't born at
I got
UNMC.
you.
But my mother worked at UNMC. My mother was a doctor, and she graduated from UNMC medical school in 1980.
Our daughter was born in Creighton, though.
Daughter was
Still
Other side of
competitors.
town.
The other side of town. But Donna and I lived in Omaha for years, and so the fact that it just happened to be UNMC, it was like, oh, I know all about that one.
It's a great facility.
It's a great facility.
Great facility.
But tell us about the clinical trial.
Yeah, so it's kind of, and I'll just back up for a second. I mean, when you guys came to us with this idea, I wouldn't say it's found money, but it really gave us an opportunity at the time to kind of take a look and work with some of the partners we work with and say, all right, in an ideal setting, if you had a blank check, what would you do? And at the time, we work with the folks at University of Nebraska Medical Center at the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center within the University of Nebraska Medical Center. We got to be careful. We use the proper terminology.
Absolutely.
We correct it many times. But so we've worked with the team there for quite some time. And even when when we started the dialogue with you guys, we began working with them back in 2014. And there was this idea of early detection. And there's a lot of ideas floating around the science spectrum about early detection in this disease, particular pancreatic cancer. We don't have a test. There's really no early detection protocol. And what I had talked to at the folks at the cancer center, and particularly Dr. Hollingsworth, who was my lead at the time, still is, was like, hey, what are your ideas on early detection? And like, do you think we could open a clinic? And how much would that cost? And what would it take? And yada, yada, yada. Because it just doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of times it's about money, let's be honest. I mean, people don't work for free. We know that as a charity. You guys know that as a charity as well. And, we're all doing great things, but it does take resources. So we started to have that dialogue before we got involved with you guys, and so it was just a matter of trying to find the funds. And then when you guys came and were like, hey, I think we can generate this, and so there was a lot of back and forth with the university, with the staff, to say, okay, if we could fund this amount, like, could we get this project off the ground, which was basically opening an early detection clinic, initially focusing on genetics and family members that have been touched by the disease. So a person has their father or mother diagnosed, and now there's this genital or a genetic risk that's there for these people in terms of getting the disease. And we do know, that's the one thing we do know with pancreatic cancer, that there is a genetic factor. And that's for all cancers now. I mean, there's so many major advances that are happening in the world of science right now. It seems like it's hard to keep up with them, but genetics is such a strong component now. Clearly what you drink and eat, and if you smoke, and if you don't exercise, are becoming bigger factors. And I foresee that to become even a bigger part of what cancer is. But so to get back to what we were trying to do, we knew there was a genetic link with some of these families. We knew that people who become diabetic late in life, that aren't overweight, that have never had diabetes, there's also a link there. And then we do know pancreatitis, people who suffer from pancreatitis, small percentage of those people will eventually get the disease, pancreatic cancer. Ironically, Nebraska has a very big pancreatitis cohort, so there's a lot of people in Nebraska that have pancreatitis. We don't know why. But the Nebraska...
Is it related to soybeans?
Could be. I mean, diet is a big factor, right?
Because I'm thinking about what Nebraska has that in abundance that others don't.
Corn.
Corn, wheat,
beef.
soy, beef,
Yeah.
Football.
an obsession with football.
Yeah.
You guys need to do better this season.
Yeah. They're working on it. They got a new coach. And then they also have a big cohort of diabetes. So if we knew we had those two big groups, and then the genetic piece was probably the easiest piece because you could go out, if you message it correctly, go out to the families that are.
You lost your parent, but would you want to be part of this trial to
Correct.
help future generations not suffer the way you just have, the way you're grieving right now?
Correct. So it kind of, you said the kind of like the things align, stars align, charities come to the table for you guys, and I wouldn't say I think prior preparation prevents poor performance. So I think we've done everything up until that point to get to that point where we were, and then it was just ideas. There's never. There's always an abundance of ideas. It really comes down to money. Mm-hmm. And I think for us, and from when we were talking, from when we originally started this dialogue, Brian and Dawn, was really like, what's more impactful for you guys in terms of the dollars that you were investing with us? And, this is stuff that's really, really super tangible. Like to go after a blood biomarker, right? Like, so there's a lot of talk about a blood test that potentially could diagnose cancer. And I truly hope that we do find that one day. But I know for me, from a results-driven personality and what we've done here at Project Purple, like if we put people to work to monitor and to surveil, basically do the surveillance of these families that are at risk, that's really sticky and tangible. And like we're changing lives. Like there's 76 people as of the end of the year that were enrolled that are going in every 6 months for blood. They're going through questionnaire. Every year they're going through some sort of diagnostic testing. And they're being monitored. So the likelihood, we hope, that none of those 76 people ever get the disease. But guess what? If they do, we're Johnny on the spot on that.
Yeah, we know it as early as possible.
Yeah.
And one of the most vivid memories of our first time around in 2016 was you and I having a conversation, and you made a comment to I'm paraphrasing, is if you meet a pancreatic cancer survivor, you throw a party.
Yeah.
Because there's so few of them. And to have 3 of them in a room is a huge...
it's like hitting the lottery.
It's like it's a huge deal, because typically we don't find pancreatic cancer until it's way too late.
Yeah.
And treatment options are gone. But if one of those 76 develops pancreatic cancer, their odds of survival are significantly better than anyone else in the public, because they caught it as early as just about as early as you can. But then that will also be a clear indicator. Then you can look back. The scientists and the doctors can look back through
They have a map.
They have a map.
Yeah.
And so what changes? Where did this person's data vary? When did it start to vary from the others in this sample group? And maybe that gives us a new clue to go down a new path, looking for
treatments
or
whatever
or
it may
detection.
go. I mean, it's so crazy and it's super fascinating. I get really geeked out on this stuff because I think, first of all, there's not. I mean, we just gave NYU a very large grant, which is similar in scope, but there's not a lot of people in the country doing what these guys are doing in Nebraska, and that's because of you guys. Now, the great news was, research is kind of this evolution, right? Like what starts today at 150, and then now, wow, this thing's actually working, and now we need more money. But what they were able to do was they were able to get enough federal funding for the next 5 years. So our initial grant, which you guys helped provide, got the program up and running, and then they were able to get more money to keep it open for 5 years.
Oh, that's
now,
awesome.
the ultimate goal is to keep this thing going and bring
in perpetuity.
and bring in more staff. So right now it's staffed at 3. They want to go to 6. So that's kind of the next step for them. And the more people that they have on staff, the more people can come in and get, that's the problem that they're having right now, is they don't have the staff volume to keep up with the demand volume.
Right.
And that's not a place where you want to be. So they're doing some things to address that. They're trying to move people. They do have a questionnaire online, which, some people may just have a random occurrence of the disease. But people who have multiple cases in their family, those people are more likely to have a genetic mutation. Or people who don't have, a link to pancreatic cancer, but might have a link to breast cancer, or prostate cancer, because that's a BRCA gene, and so this is really a clinic that's BRCA specific. They're looking at like BRCA since that's the most popular gene mutation for pancreatic cancer. There's a couple other gene mutations as well that if they've identified them in the familial kind of history of the family, then they will monitor those people. But BRCA kind of goes over the span between pancreatic cancer, breast cancer, prostate, and also melanoma. So it's something that they actually are starting to work with some of the breast cancer folks. When I was just out there literally 3 weeks ago, beginning of January, what was I thinking? I went to Nebraska in the middle of I went literally right after New Year's. But I scaved the snow. It's snowing now, but when I was there, it was just really cold. But they were actually, I sat in on the clinic meeting, and they were talking about like now they're starting to work with two groups, which is really fascinating. The VA, which is out there. You're a man of the military, so the VA out there has got a really good program, and they're trying to go. And what's fascinating with that is they can flip the switch pretty quickly. Like people get in line at the VA, in the sense of being able to get people involved in the clinic. And so they're looking at the diabetes cohort at the VA, but then they're also looking at breast cancer, because BRCA is a big breast cancer gene mutation as well. So it's really fascinating. I mean, if you really want to get geeked out and start peeling back layers, like so the 150 that was invested there started the clinic, and now it's spanning over to breast cancer and diabetes. Like it's so fascinating to see like the spear and how this is like trickling down all across the place.
The analogy I've thought of in the past is we're the pull cord on the engine. We're that thing that gets the starter. Others, provide the fuel and the maintenance and the oil and whatnot to keep the engine running and keep the engine going. But we've been able to be that pull cord to.
It's a good analogy.
But you've got to have the engine put together. You've got to have it ready to go.
You have an engine.
you got to have it ready to go. And so we're always very deliberate and very careful about the charity partners we select. That there is a clear direct impact. That that X amount of dollars equals Y amount of good, and that it's clearly quantifiable. Our members, you guys love to see, we did this, and we did it as Potterheads, as fans.
And that's hard to do with a cancer charity.
Because
it's usually they are in a place of just simply advocacy and awareness, which there's definitely a space for that, and it's always needed. But in our arena, we like to have direct impact, and so finding you guys a cancer charity that has a tangible, quantifiable, like, whew, you did that. It's just perfect.
And that also has a very similar culture, given the running nature of Project Purple. Now, so for those that don't know, and I know this story, but I'm going to ask the story anyway. Ask the question anyway. Project Purple started as a promise.
Yeah.
So, talk about your dad.
So my story was my dad was diagnosed in December of 2008. He had his surgery. He was a Whipple candidate, so the one surgery that, if you can have, and only 1 in 5 are eligible statistically. So he was 1 in 5. And so he had that December of 2008, did chemotherapy, was clean for like 6 months, and then came back. The cancer came back in March of 2010, and it was metastatic, stage 4. 3 months, go. That's what the doctor said. You have 3 months. Go get your affairs in order. My family, decided to kind of go the other way and continue to fight it. My dad did, and my mom. And so during that process and during that time, I was blessed. I had my own business. I was an entrepreneur. I had a financial service business, as you guys know. Or for the people listening at home, or at work, in the car, or at the gym, just not doing texting and driving.
Yeah, don't be texting. You can listen. You can listen. Don't
watch.
Don't be watching.
I saw an Uber driver doing that the other day. Yeah,
terrifying.
Take Uber a lot, and I see some really crazy, fascinating things. That's another podcast, another day.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on crazy Uber stories. So through that whole process, I was there for everything. I think I missed one appointment, and again, I was fortunate. I had my own company, and I made a sacrifice speaking to my wife at the time and said, hey, I'm going to do this. We're going to be there for my parents and my dad. And you just learn a lot, like going through cancer, you learn a lot. I think you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the system. You learn a lot about the disease, the doctors, the nurses. And I was never a runner. Probably hated running. I wouldn't say I hated it. I just wasn't into it. It just wasn't my thing. And I just started to run and deal with like the reality of that diagnosis. And I wasn't naive to the fact that at one point, like, yeah, I wanted to like do everything in my power to save my dad and have him for the rest of my life. But I also was naive. I wasn't naive to the fact like, hey, that I could do that. Like my efforts with Project Purple, when I started Project Purple, were going to keep my dad alive. I don't think I ever had that intention, but I think when I started Project Purple was to inspire others to get involved so that other families didn't have to go through the hell that we experienced. And it was hell. I mean, for people, anyone, I think, it's just to watch someone that you love and you care about, like, just waste away and to die in front of your eyes is pretty powerful stuff, and that changes people, and hopefully for the most it changes them for better and to be inspired to do things. And so that was the mission early on was, and I knew running, like for me at the time, like running became my thing, like it was my 20 minutes at the time, and then it became 40, 2 hours, 4 hours, however long I was out there running, kind of became my thing. And, I think being an entrepreneur, I looked at the space. I mean, there's other groups in the space. We're not alone. I mean, there's 65 groups worldwide. I think there's 28 just here in North America. So there's other groups, but none of which really were kind of tackling this disease with running and making running a focus. And there's other groups just in the charitable space, as you guys know, that do this full time and raise hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, it's really it's a $1 trillion business, endurance and philanthropy. So I just said, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to, and I've kind of, I think, last year was our best year ever. And you look back and I think anyone who's successful, and you guys probably do this every year, you kind of look back and say, all right, what was success? Like what worked, what didn't work? How can we get better? And I think that's I've done a lot of reflection over the past couple months, and we've grown, as you guys have seen, and we're here at this mothership. It's a bigger office. It's a lot more stress. I feel the stress, like, we got to do more, But, I think I look back, and I think the one thing that this has really become is, and I've always said this, is giving people who go through this hell this positive thing, and something that's like so positive that, like they can have the worst day, they could be seeing like the worst of times with their loved one, but they're kind of with all these people that get it. Mm-hmm. And they're doing this positive, like running is positive. I don't care what you're running for, but you're going to have like this endorphin rush at some point. It might be when you tie your shoes because you get so excited, or it might be after when you pull off your sweats because like now you're warm again, but at some point, regardless of the distance, and I've always said that, like, yeah, we do a lot of marathons, but like regardless of, like, it could be freaking 10 minutes. It could be like a half mile. I love the mile distance, and I wish we tried one year to do like a mile run because I was like, yeah, the mile's going to come back. Everyone's going to try to go for that 4-minute mile, and it flopped. It was just, it was a bad venue. Like, we made money, but it just wasn't. I thought we would get 1,000 people, and we got like 200. I was like, this sucks. Like, no one gets my mindset about the mile. But, like, going back, I think this is just, it's just something that has really provided a positive impact on people's lives in a really negative time. And I think, a lot of what we do is not rocket science, but there is a science. Like, if you look at charity, like for us talking about the grant, just to go back, like it's very measurable. Like we're able to take money from a group that supported us. We supported it. It's this partnership. You're part of the family. And then we go and get shit done. Like GSD, like that's another term I use. Like, let's get stuff done. Like, and that's like my appeal to the scientists and the doctors is like, hey, we're in it to get stuff done. I don't want to sit around for the next 5 years or 10 years and say, what could we do? Like, let's get this money to work and let's start helping to save people's lives. So I think this has evolved, even from when our last relationship, as you guys saw coming in, and I think it's been a lot of hard work. It's been very hard at times because you deal with a very
you deal with a subject that oftentimes involves death.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's like almost like sobering because like it's almost like it's tough. Like it's hard with the staff because sometimes I tend to kind of shield the staff from the death and the dying and the families, but I think it was also important for people to see that, though, and it doesn't make me any better or any worse. I've dealt with this for the last 9 years, right? Like I've constantly, like, it's this cycle sometimes almost with families. Like they come in, they get involved, and then someone dies, and you kind of have like this traumatic event, and we hope that they stay involved and do stuff positive and continue. And so, it's been very difficult. I think last year was a great year financially for us. But also it was a very hard year, worked really hard, I flew a lot. I think it was the most I've ever flown in my life. I realized that when Delta sent out the year end. I'm a Delta guy, sorry guys.
I'm a United guy, just wanted to know I'm a United guy. So I'm looking for sponsorships. So United, if you ever want to sponsor Random Tuesday.
Or Delta. But when the email came and said, you flew around the earth twice, I was like, well, that seemed like a lot.
And that's the miles I did last year, too.
Flying around and I didn't go overseas, I didn't go international at all last year. It was just all domestic, so. But yeah, so it's been great. It's been a great journey. I also know, Brian and Dawn, like, nothing I ever do will ever make up for losing my dad. Yeah. And I think that's hard for me sometimes, like, as I have 2 older boys, and, like, my older son graduated from 8th grade and is now a freshman, and, just being at that graduation, for me, family was always, education was very important, being a child of immigrants and parents that never graduated, past, they got taken out of school at like 7th grade because they had to go work on the farm. So I think, those moments are really hard. And so all the success that I've had or we've had, together, can't make up for the loss of a loved one,
But it's an incredible honor. It's remembering them and doing it in their honor is meaningful.
I won't disagree with you.
It's a memorial.
Yeah,
it's a monument.
I don't see it that way, though.
You don't?
No, I don't. But because the narrative has changed, man. It's like so. Like, maybe the first year I really like bought into that. Like the first year after my dad had died. I mean, I shouldn't disagree. I don't disagree with you. I just think like the narrative for me has changed a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, it's evolved.
It's an evolving narrative.
It's an evolving narrative, but it's where the origin story begins, and it's one that's deeply personal.
Yeah.
And you left an entirely different career to pursue this, and to change the world. We did the same thing. And
why did we do that?
We're all a little bit crazy.
All a little bit crazy, but
we are all a little bit crazy.
Yeah, all a little bit crazy.
You have to be a little bit crazy.
But you have to admit that, though. I think like people who don't admit that, like there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, there is.
Well, this is a huge risk.
Yeah.
When you take the financial stability of a career path, and you go, I have an idea, and wherever that, whatever sparks that idea, with you and your dad, and your idea technically kind of sparked with your mom in a distant way, but there was just a global tilt, and all of a sudden now
this is our lives full time.
Yeah.
We started because I wanted to raise money for cancer research. Lost my mom and my grandfather. Lost my grandfather to pancreatic cancer, along with everything else. Because what finally killed him, it took pancreatic cancer and another kind of cancer to finally get him. Yeah. He survived everything else, like open heart surgeries and all of that. But no, my mom died from brain cancer, and so cancer is an old enemy. And so this whole thing started off supporting the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute up in Boston. Yeah, but that first year, 2014, everything went to them, and $10,670 was raised, and I was very proud of that. And they sent me a form letter thanking Mr. Higgs, Higgs. Love Dana-Farber, but come on. It's like, I'm not looking for fame or glory, but can you spell my name right on the form letter? And it was around that same time, one of our members told me about the charity that she was involved in, called 65 Roses and Miles for Cystic Fibrosis down in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And a small organization directly helping families with supplies that aren't covered by insurance for cystic fibrosis. And I was like, I bet if I gave them $5,000 or $10,000, that would make a huge impact on how they work. I realized Dana-Farber is hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and they're doing lots of great research.
Yeah.
Sure, that's awesome, and there's definitely they are filling a critical role, but they also don't.
Big machine.
Big machine, and what we can generate isn't even the spare change in the ashtray of the car in the back lot of the second headquarters building they had 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing, and so we went to this new model of supporting a different charity partner with each event, with the idea of $10,000 or $20,000 to this small organization will have a real impact in people's lives. And then that grew, it got big, and we made a life choice decision. I left active duty Air Force just a few years prior to being retirement eligible, and a lot of people told me that I was nuts for doing it, but it was what needed to happen when it needed to happen. Because in order for it to grow, we had to be in one place. We had to put down roots.
Yeah.
Because this whole moving every 18 months to 2 years.
Oh, it's a grind.
That's nuts. And sometimes it was more frequent than that.
We are never moving again.
So for those that don't know,
Just finished yesterday.
just finished moving in
unpacking.
to our
Oh
the
no, there's
last.
still plenty of unpacking to do.
But we actually got all the stuff into the house, and we will never move again.
Yeah.
Here in Connecticut.
Yep, in Madison, same town we've been living in, and that is where I'll be buried.
Teeny tiny house.
Yep.
And it doesn't have a linen closet, and that frustrates me. But other than that, it's perfect. So,
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
So
anyway,
but back to the other things. So now we have a new event. So that was Half Blood Prince, and then we've covered the past. Let's talk about the future. The future is here. The future is
cool mount.
now again. I'm going to move this in several different angles because I don't know how the lighting
look
is,
through it.
but I can seize you. I can seize you.
Sorry, that's
And-
something from our kid.
And so it is the frosted glass, from Lavender and her quite possibly most clingery moment when she frosted the glass. Yeah, that's scarier than Voldemort.
It was sweet.
Sweet. Yeah. Scary sweet. But this medal is, hon, I love all of them. I love them all. But honestly, Project Purple has lucked out because, man, you have generated two of my all-time favorites. And Project Purple has been the beneficiary for both.
Now, Dino, do you actually know the story about this medal and why it exists? Did anyone fill you in?
On the lavender brown one?
Uh-huh.
The backstory?
I do not know the backstory. And I had to ask my younger son because he is the Potter, in the house. He is the person to go to with Harry Potter questions because he's read the book.
He wouldn't even find it.
So he filled you in on who Lavender Brown was.
Correct.
But there's a story within Potterhead Running Club.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know this.
January 2017, something we started doing in 2017 was putting out a fake schedule. Totally not real fake schedule.
Yeah.
People wanted to know what the dates of the events were going to be so they would remember to sign up. They could
budget
and put calendar reminders and whatnot. And I thought that was a great idea. So Dawn put out this fake calendar that had 6 really obvious fake names. Like there was the Cornelius Fudge, Minister of Magic, run far, far, far away, a marathon isn't enough.
Yeah.
Event. The Dursley 0.0K, because they didn't run or walk at all.
Couch to TVK or something
Couch
like
to
that.
TVK,
Yeah.
But it
They
became
were ridiculous.
They were silly. And one of them was the Lavender Brown
Brown
Stage 5K Clinger. The Stage
was a
5 Clinger.
joke, 'cause
The
it's-
Stage 5 Clingers from the movie Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a Stage 5 Clinger here.
It was a joke.
It was a joke.
It was a joke. Well, so then there was a small contingency of people who would not let it go, and they just kept demanding the Stage 5K Clinger. I'm like, this was a joke. I'm not doing it. Never doing it. So then the next year, my entire
January of
calendar every event was the Stage 5K Clinger because they just wouldn't let it go.
The dates were right, but
So the people spoke.
The people spoke.
They spoke loudly and often.
And threatened to burn the castle to the ground.
Yeah. And I don't normally respond
500.
to threats because you don't negotiate with terrorists. But then I had.
Shandy's like, did you just call me a terrorist, Dawn?
But then I got the idea for what the medal would actually look like, and it came out really nicely.
It is spectacular.
That is really cool.
One of the rare moments where what's in my head actually translates to metal and acrylic. And so basically, Jeannie Sweeney got her medal.
Yeah,
Really.
she was the leader of that faction.
Yeah.
That faction. And so when looking at charity partners for the Stage 5K Clinger, it was, this is our year 6. This is our 6th year of existence. We're beginning our 6th year. And that means that this is our Half-Blood Prince year. This is the 6th book, 6th year. We now have not always, for those who are just joining us, and I mean like just joining Potterhead Running Club, you'll look back at our past events and like, those don't line up to the books at all.
We weren't planning on being here.
Because this was only supposed to be like a 1-year thing. It was
6 years fast forward.
Well, the original goal was to raise $500 for cancer research, and we are now at $2.43 million.
Unbelievable.
For all sorts of things.
And so proof that magic is real. But so the first year has there's a Chamber of Secrets, there's a Sorcerer's Stone, there's a Walk in the Moonlight. Their holes are all from different years. But over the last couple of years, we've kind of synced up to theming it through the book for that year. So this is our year 6. This is our Half-Blood Prince year, but we've already done a Half-Blood Prince.
Oops.
Oopsies. We did that in our 3rd year. Again, it was out of order. But since we weren't going to do that, we wanted to find some way to honor Alan, our Half-Blood Prince. And it's the lavender brown. Okay, I know it's a little bit more on the nose than we typically go, but
It works.
It was totally done. She's like, there's a good charity that could go really well with lavender. And I don't know if Liz Krafnick was in the room that day or not.
I don't think she was.
No,
was she?
No, she wasn't. Told about it later, because if she had been in the room at the time, there would have been tears.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Liz Krafnick volunteers for Project Purple. She is a longtime member of Potterhead Running Club and is in our office all the time. And so, she got very excited when she heard about that.
Yeah, she was excited to come in, and when I saw her, she was all jazzed and everything. So
her two favorite organizations are working together again, and she found Project Purple through the 2016 event,
which is really amazing. And I just gotta jump in here. It's fascinating to me when we launched how many of our alumni were members of Potterhead. Like there's a couple of other crossovers. There's a girl, Angela, who
Angela Singh
lives in New York.
Yep, yeah. Angela Singh. Hi, Angela. I'm sure she's watching right now.
Yeah, and then Kathleen Balducci, who is a friend. She's actually on our advisory board. She lives out in Chicago, and she's a big Potterhead fan. And so it was just really fascinating to see the dynamics of that all evolve. Like when we launched, I was like, okay, I didn't know if we'd have to retell the story, but it didn't have to happen because our alumni told the story for us that were involved. So it was really fascinating to me on the second time, how cool that was.
Yeah, and it was really cool. And people were you should be very excited to support Project Purple again, because I'm looking forward to what and again. I'm kind of curious about the future of, we don't know how well this is going to do. Hopefully it's going to sell out.
I like records. I like records.
Records.
It's very competitive.
Yes.
So I think that was one of the questions when you called and you said, hey, you guys still hold the record. But I was like, I'd really like to beat that record.
I'd like to beat that record. Can we smash the record?
Yeah.
And so we will do our very best to have Project Purple take spots 1 and 2.
It'd be great.
That'd be awesome. But we go back to that engine analogy. Polkort, do you have any idea, any sense of what you're building on, what you're working right now, that this could help be a pull cord to get launched?
Really putting me on the spot.
Yeah, I am. I'm dropping.
My mind hasn't been spinning since we had the initial conversation a couple weeks back.
No, I just don't know if is there an initiative or project
off the
you guys
record. There's a lot of initiatives, and I think this is how I'll leave your question with this answer. Is I think there's an abundance of ideas. I think it's just for us and for you as our partner to see what really makes sense.
Right. And it also depends on the size of the pull cord.
Correct.
If the size of the pull cord will really...
Yeah.
I mean, the absolute worst case scenario is if it didn't, break records. There's still all of the direct support that you guys do for pancreatic cancer patients.
Yeah.
And so there's a ton of direct support that goes to the patients. That has nothing to do with clinical trials or research or anything like that. And so, guys, you could be changing the lives of people who are fighting the disease right now. And so, but if the pull cord is bigger,
yeah, I think there's
other things we might be able to do.
some really cool ideas, and I think one of them, so what we started at Nebraska, we've kind of evolved at NYU, and there might be some other players, again, with funding that we could potentially
expand that concept.
Because not everyone can get to Nebraska, right? I mean, and if you think about it...
For many reasons.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dad.
But, and New York as well. Like, New York is on the East Coast, so there's a whole continent.
Yeah.
There's another part of this country that, is impacted by the disease. And just even here regionally, too, there's some things that we could potentially do with the success of the program. So there's something, in terms of success, it's not necessarily doing multiple things different. It's just doing things the same way and getting really good at that. So that's where I kind of like this idea of like, hey, if we've got this clinic model that we could roll out in other centers. Now, it might look different because, like, hey, what happens in Nebraska may be different in LA or in New York or Florida or Texas. Just throwing out
because there's lots of different factors.
Correct.
Geography, diet, exercise, culture.
There's so many factors.
So many different factors.
But if you can take the foundation and the framework of that and put that in place in another place where now, hey, you can get another 76 people involved just in the, and I mean, 76 is a number I keep harping on because that's what I knew when I was there in January that had enrolled, which the ultimate goal is to get, 500 people a year into these clinics. So we just continue to do that and perfect that, then I think we'll have success. So, not to not answer your question, but kind of give you kind of a framework around it. I'd love to continue, and that's something I've said for us. Like if we could be the champion of opening these clinics across the country at these major centers, that makes sense. That we'll collaborate, and that's the other key, Brian and Dawn, with this is like. People say, well, I go to XYZ, that's the best cancer center in America. Well, okay. I'm not going to name any names, but XYZ doesn't share their information with everyone else. So they don't like playing in the sandbox. And that's something for us, when we give money, like there's two things that we ask, that you put the money to work, which we talked about, get stuff done, but also collaborate. Because there's not going to be one doctor who's going to figure this out.
Right.
It's going to be like a multi-center approach, and we got to work with each other. So if XYZ Medical Center doesn't want to work with the rest of the world, well then so what? We'll go elsewhere.
Because because especially with data and clinical trials, when you're sharing information across the board, that nugget, that one piece of data, there can very well be that one needle in the haystack that when you look at that and go, wait a minute, there's an anomalous thing, there's a moment, there's an aha, and if that breadcrumb is the beginning of a whole new trail that leads us to an early detection protocol that saves thousands of lives.
Thousands.
But that kernel of data would never, if there's not collaboration, the right eye doesn't see it at the right moment. And there isn't that aha moment and shared. But actually, your answer to the question is actually perfect. It really, really is. Because, guys, what is the impact of this one going to be? Well, we're going to support Project Purple. And where does the impact going to be? Whether it's with current existing pancreatic cancer patients or we're trying to do clinical trials to prevent people from getting pancreatic cancer in the future, it's really up to you. Register for the event, get your friends to register for the event, your barista, co-workers, whatever it is. Mailman,
UPS.
We do not discriminate between FedEx, UPS, or USPS. Actually, DHL, whatever. Yeah. I'm kidding.
Amazon delivery.
No, we like you, Amazon delivery. Thank you very much. Stop delivering all the stuff to my house. Anyway, but the more people we get to sign up for the event, then the more options that Project Purple will have on how to apply those funds to make a huge impact on the lives of people fighting this disease. And that's really what it boils down to in a nutshell. So I think that's it for our portion. We're going to kind of switch over, turn the tables, and start having you ask us questions. So if we'll edit this down, if you guys want to hear Dino ask us crazy questions, rather than us asking Dino, we're going to continue this conversation. Again, all of this is available on the Fuller podcast, available on Project Purple, on iTunes and
SoundCloud,
Google Play, where all the finest podcasts are found.
Exactly, wherever you get your podcast.
Wherever you get your podcasts, go check it out.
We're everywhere.
I didn't know what a podcast was until I met Kier.
Yeah.
And what is your definition of a podcast?
I still don't really know.
But yeah, so go check out the full podcast, and thanks so much, guys, for supporting Project Purple. Go sign up for the Stage 5 Cleaner. Don't forget to get your shirt. It's very important that you do that. But follow the link, that sign up button right above you where you're watching. And you get that beautiful thing. And by the way, they arrive at headquarters today, and today is the 29th of January. And so they'll all be mailed out the 18th. They're all getting mailed out on the 18th of February all over the world.
They're in a van right now. Sorry,
they're in a van being picked up. So, yeah, you're killing here and the final audio. So thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Bye.